Here we're going to revise past perfect before we start answering exercises. Again, how to form past perfect. It's had plus past participle. We also call the past participle PP, which is the third form of the verb. Examples: the train had gone. I had lunch. Notice that in this sentence we have had for the past perfect and had as the third form of the main verb have. So we have had and the third form of the main verb have. I had lunch. He had been a waiter. The use of past perfect tense. We use past perfect tense to describe one past action happening before another past action. Action number 1, past perfect, had and third form. Action number 2, past simple, the second form of the verb. Example 1. The train had gone when I arrived at the station. So the train had gone first and later I arrived at the station. Both action 1 and action 2 are past actions, but action 1 happened before action 2. So for action 1 we use past perfect, had and the third form. For action 2 we use past simple, the second form of the verb. So look at this diagram. The train had gone at a certain time in the past before I arrived. When I say the train had gone, this is the action that happened first. When I arrived at the station, this is the action that happened later. We don't know when exactly the train went. This is action number 1. But it went at any point of time before the moment the second action took place, I arrived. Note, we use past perfect tense when necessary to indicate the sequence of two past actions. For example, she had gone out when I got home. So from this sentence, I understand that she had gone out first and then I got home. Sometimes, if the sequence is clear, the past perfect is not always necessary. I can say, for example, she went out before I got home, because the meaning is clear. So it's not necessary to use past perfect, but we usually use it. However, it is often used for clarity. So it's better to say she had gone out before I got home than saying she went out before I got home, even though the meaning is clear, but we often use it for clarity. We often use it when the second action is understood but not stated. For example, I hadn't realized that. Here I didn't mention another action, but it's understood from the context that I hadn't realized it until you told me. So the second action is you telling me. Even though I didn't mention it, I can understand it from the context. Now notice this. Compare sentence A and sentence B. When I had dinner, I watched TV. I had dinner before I watched TV. In both sentences, A and B, which action happened first? How is the sequence of actions indicated in each of the two sentences? In sentences A and B, the action of having dinner happened first. In sentence A, the sequence of the action is indicated by the use of the past perfect. In sentence B, the sequence of the action is indicated by the use of before. Of course, you know that to form negative or questions, we need a helping verb. Here with past perfect, the helping verb is had. So, to make negative, we say hadn't. To ask a WH question, we use had right after the WH word. To make a yes-no question, we put had at the beginning of the yes-no question. So let's look at this example. She had finished homework by the time mom came back. Negative. She had not finished homework by the time mom came back. To ask a question, had she finished homework by the time mom came back? And also you can use had after the WH word. Exercise A. I'm going to tell you a situation and ask you to put the verbs in the correct form. Susan and Terry returned home from holiday yesterday to find a broken window and several valuable things missing. Later, they told the police what happened. Exercise A. I want you to put the verb in brackets into the correct form. Write down the answers on a piece of paper and then revise your answers at the end. When did you first realize someone break into your house? Well, when we opened the front door, we noticed that someone walked through the hole in muddy shoes and break the lock of the living room door. And then, when we went into the kitchen, we saw that the thief or thieves come in through the kitchen window. They smashed the glass and opened the window from the inside. Anything missing from the kitchen? As far as we can tell, there is nothing missing from the kitchen, but it was an awful mess. And what about the living room? We couldn't believe our eyes when we first went in. They threw all the books on the floor. They searched through every drawer in the desk. They tear open all the cushions. They pulled the carpet up. And they even smashed all the pictures. And what was missing? Well, that's strange. They take some cash and smaller pieces of silver, but they leave a lot of valuable items. They even leave the check books. I don't understand it. Something or someone probably disturbed them. It often happens. Well, we'll do our best, but there's not much chance of recovering your possessions, I'm afraid. After writing all your answers, please check the answer key. 1 had broken, 2 had walked, 3 had broken, 4 had come, 5 had smashed, 6 had opened, 7 had thrown, 8 had searched, 9 had torn, 10 had pulled, 11 had even smashed, 12 had taken, 13 had left, 14 had left, 15 had probably disturbed. Exercise B. Phil had his first flying lessons yesterday. He's now telling Richard what it was like. Please put the verb in brackets into the correct form and write down your answers on a piece of paper. You ever been in a small plane before? No, and I not expect it to be so noisy. I fly in several different jets before, but I never even see a small plane before yesterday. The instructor realized you were a complete beginner? Oh yes, he spent 30 minutes asking me questions before we went out of the plane. I told him I always want to learn how to fly, but I never have the opportunity and I not be able to afford it before. Was the lesson as exciting as you expect? Oh yes, I imagine all sorts of things before I actually flew the plane. I think I would get airsick, I dream I would crash, I be worried I would be too nervous to control the plane, I imagine the plane would catch fire. But after the lesson I suddenly realized that I not be sick and we not catch fire, that I control the plane well, that the plane not catch fire, and that I actually fly a plane for the first time in my life. It was fantastic. Now with the answers, and please notice that sometimes here we use apostrophe D as abbreviation of had. We also use apostrophe D as abbreviation of would. How do we know the difference? If you have apostrophe D plus infinitive, this is would. Apostrophe D plus third form, this is had. Now with the answers. 16, had you been? 17, hadn't expected. 18, I'd flown. 19, I'd never even seen. 20, had the instructor realized. 21, he had spent. 22, I'd always wanted. 23, I'd never had. 24, hadn't been. 25, you'd expected. 26, I'd imagined. 27, I'd thought. 28, I'd dreamt. 29, I'd been. 30, I'd imagined. 31, hadn't been. 32, hadn't crashed. 33, I'd controlled. 34, hadn't caught. 35, I'd actually flown.